Farhad Khosrokhavar is research director at the French School of Higher Learning and Social Studies EHESS, the author of The New Jihad in the West. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
You're welcome.
It's been nearly a week, and we're getting more details that are coming out now about this attack, which is highly unusual. We've never seen something like this inside police headquarters. And also the profile of the attacker, a recently radicalized IT worker. What surprises you the most in all this?
What surprises me the most is the fact that he was not detected before. In 2015, in a discussion with colleagues, he said that he understood the motives of those who killed 8 journalists, with Charlie Hebdo, and he defended them. The Kouachi brothers, who killed them. So at that time, he was showing obviously signs of radicalization, and he should have been somehow, marginalized or taken out of the kind of job he was doing, because since then we know that he had noted 12 people who worked, with him or on these topics, and we don't know whether he sent the addresses or the names of these people to the others. So there is a major failure, from my viewpoint, of the state to tackle the problem of radicalization among those people who are supposed to protect people within the Interior Ministry.
First of all, there was, as early as Thursday when the attack happened, a police source telling France 24 that he had been radicalized, and yet 24 hours later, the Interior Minister says there had been no sign of it. What do you make of all that?
There has been signs of it, but they were not sent to the superior hierarchy. So there was something which was blocking them, and what was blocking was somehow, first and foremost, the fact that the colleagues did not want to denounce him. They said to the authorities that he had a discussion with him and he showed signs of radicalization in his opinions, but they did not want to write it down, directly. On the second point is that, he tried to convince his hierarchy that there was no problem, so that when the investigators, asked the superiors in his center whether or not he was radicalized, they said the problem had been solved within the center. So that the problem is not that he was not radicalized, he did not show signs of radicalization. The problem is that they were not captured, adequately by the authorities.
The French president, in the speech he gave in the courtyard of police headquarters this Tuesday, using strong language, he said, "Your colleagues fell under the blows of an Islam gone rogue, and which carries death, and which it is up to us to eradicate." Farhad Khosrokhavar, you've done a lot of work on radicalization and spoken with people who have become radicalized, most notably in prisons. What's the impact of the words used? Were those the right words to be used by the French president?
As a president, he has to unify the country when there is a major blow, to the identity of the people. And I fully understand his attitude. But at the same time, I cannot, hide myself the fact that this is a language that occults what might be called the failure of the government, to tackle the problem. It is not a radicalization in the civil sphere. It is a radicalization within the innermost circles of the government who are supposed to fight against radicalization. And that's why I understand the highest authority in the state tries to, in a way, just bypass the major problem. It is, of course, the question of radical Islam, which is a scourge in almost every society, Muslim societies included. But at the same time, one should not forget the fact that it is not, I would say, trivial radicalization. It is a radicalization within those parts of the states which are supposed to fight against radicalization. If we take, for instance, the case of Sharif Shekat, who in 2018 killed 5 people in Strasbourg and aimed more than 11. So that was a case, from below. He did not have any kind of job as a civil servant. He had no connection whatsoever to the government, to the state. And in a way, one can say it is the fact that he was radicalized from below, from the grassroots level. And in that respect, one can say there was no responsibility whatsoever on the side of the powers that be. But here, it is very difficult to forget the fact, or just to deny the fact, that this radicalization process occurred where it should not have been occurred. It should not have happened, or if it happened, it should have been identified very quickly.
Occurred where it shouldn't have happened. And of course, now one of the issues lawmakers will have to contend with is more careful screening. How much is the right amount when it comes to screening people, especially if they have, let's talk bluntly about it, if they have a Muslim name, which in this case he didn't have.
Mm-hmm. The major problem with Michael Harpon was that he was working within this administration for 16 years. And he became radicalized around 2014, 2015. That means he had been there for more than 10 years without any major problem. And that's a problem that, not only in France, but elsewhere, European governments have to tackle. For instance, in Germany, a car, wounded 5 or 6 people in Limburg yesterday or the day before yesterday. And that is supposed to be a radicalization case as well. But he was a Syrian, he was outside the sphere of the state, and when it comes to the government, of course, those parts of the governments that are supposed to deal with security should be much more adamant than the others. For instance, he seems to have given 12 names, of those people who worked on these topics to perhaps somebody, but he mentioned those 12 names. Did he transmit them to the Al-Qaeda or Daesh or any other jihadist group? We don't know. So the major failure is there, and my guess is that the way information is transmitted from below to the higher levels should be revised in order to increase its efficiency. Of course, there will be innocent people who might be accused, but I'm sure that within the civil society, people accept this risk, because killing innocent people is by far more, I would say, unacceptable than being, denied some kind of right to defend oneself in some cases.